Welcome to the second episode of Illuminate's podcast, The Cast. Get it? The Cast? Okay, let's dive right in. My name is Leah, and I'm a manager and national lead at Illuminate Universe.
My name is Sarah. I am also a manager and national lead.
So in this episode of Illuminate Universe's podcast, Illuminate founder Alina Huang interviews Jessica McNaughton, who's both an entrepreneur and an intrapreneur. Follow Jessica on her inspiring and captivating journey from post-secondary to working at WestJet, the University of Calgary, Shell, and finally creating her own consulting firm and startup, Memory KPR, a digital time capsule.
I think our listeners will truly enjoy hearing Jessica talk about her professional journey in HR and advice on how to find your true passion for aspiring corporate professionals. Jessica also discusses strategies to demonstrate high performance while leveraging emotional intelligence in any professional work environment.
So before further ado, let's learn how to inject leadership into any role and design a life that gives you energy in our latest episode with business superwoman, Jessica McNaughton.
Hi, Jessica. Thank you for the interview opportunity. To give everyone some context, Jessica and I met back 2 years ago, I think, when Jessica was this amazing keynote speaker for the National High School Business Competition that was held at Deloitte, Canada. Ever since then, I've always contacted Jessica for all kinds of advice, whether that be careers, life, or even boys. And Jessica's my go-to. So today I'm so happy, Jessica, that you're here and that more people can benefit from hearing your story. So since a lot of my followers, they're young professionals and some are students, I thought we'd maybe start from the beginning. So Jessica, what did you study when you were in college or university, and what did you want to be when you grew up?
I'm still trying to figure that one out. So thank you for having me here. First of all, I love being around you. I always leave a little wiser and a little more energized as well. So I appreciate the show. In regards to what I studied, I did not take a traditional path. So I studied some general science classes, focused on anthropology, and took a couple of years, and then I actually didn't finish my degree right out of high school. So I took a different path. I left home, and then I left Canada, and I went and worked abroad teaching English. I worked on cruise ships for a while. I worked in a resort town in Banff, Alberta, and really focused on, I would say I was still focusing on education, just non-traditional education. So I actually took a longer path to get there, as I just recently completed my executive master's of business administration from the Levine School of Business last year. So
wow,
it was
congratulations.
Thank you. And in regards to what I wanted to be when I grew up, I have to say I still don't know for sure. I take that as, I think some of us are born with this really clear insight as to what we want to do and how we want to live and what we want to be. And some of us are searching. And I think embracing that searching is important. Because I think early on I realized I had some friends who knew exactly what they wanted to do. And I was like, I'm never going to be that person, I don't think. I want to try everything. And so what I did was I learned to inject passion into mundane things, because I knew I wanted to live a passionate life and a passionate, day. So trying to take the ordinary and make it a little bit more special. And I think just chasing joy, in the absence of knowing this is exactly what I want to do, being able to wake up and say, then I have to really listen to myself, where I found the joy, where I was, energized, and chase that instead. So
I love that, Jessica. I feel like even me sometimes, just coming out of graduation, I felt like there were certain goals that were already set for me, for my peers who were studying business, and we weren't. So I really like what you talked about in terms of, following what you're passionate about and finding joy, because those two things will eventually bring you to a place that, that belongs to you, that you're the maker of your life.
Yes.
And I love the lifelong learning piece. That's what I feel like keeps us growing and discovering all facets of life.
Yeah, and being an adult learner was you appreciated it in a completely different way.
Oh, cool. Tell me more about that.
I mean, you just, I went with a curiosity that I think I didn't have when I was right out of high school and then started taking classes where I was just like, I have to do this paper and I have to finish it and I have to get to this next thing because I have to get this done. Whereas this experience was a little bit more about like, I can see how it applies or how it doesn't. I'm confident enough in myself to challenge a professor to say, I don't actually think that works in the real world, or I wouldn't have been 20 years earlier. And it was just a little bit more like, I almost liken it to like playing a board game. Like you kind of went for stuff because you're like, what do I have to lose? I know I'm going to complete this and I'm going to get as much out of it as I put in. So, yeah.
Wow. I love that attitude where you're just not afraid of failure, or your perception of failure. It's very, I don't want to say joyful, but it gives you a lot more courage in that sense where you can explore the things you love. So I really love that. So I noticed that in the beginning of your career, actually the majority of your career when I was stalking your LinkedIn, is you focused on focused on HR. So tell us about the transition into HR.
Yeah. I would say I never, and I mean, my last role, I was a chief people officer. I clearly was an HR person, but I never saw myself as an HR person. I always saw myself as a business person in human resources. And I think that started from a fairly young age, just seeing in order to extract value and make any sort of business venture successful, it was how well you could extract potential from people and how well you could keep them motivated and engaged and committed. And so I think I have a fairly business minded, focus, but would always get irritated at, well, wow, you just disenfranchised this whole department or this whole group, or you're not going to get value out of them because you just made them feel like crap. So I think early on when I worked on the business side, I noticed the people things that could be better to make the business better. And so that led me to just kind of naturally falling into HR. Like I started at HR and recruiting. I spent a lot of time in recruiting. Recruited at WestJet when it was like the glory days. We doubled in size 2.5 times in 2.5 years.
Wow.
So it was really, and it was the best time there. Everyone wanted to work there, and it really was a matter of like picking the best and the brightest and the most driven. And it really was a time where they wanted people to make their own good decisions. So we were picking people who we were entrusting with a lot. They could waive fees still. They could, give away things. Like it was a different world. And so being able to just see and extract the best potential from people was something that just came pretty naturally, pretty early. And I got really lucky. Like I can say I look fondly on every single job I had, but I had some really incredible mentors there and really wise entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs.
Interesting. So tell us your perception of the difference between an entrepreneur and an intrapreneur. How do you differentiate them?
Yeah. So I think, and I don't just think, I did my thesis paper for my EMBA on this topic itself and how to leverage the entrepreneur in an organization. And so I think the difference really, like partially, entrepreneurs are a little bit more patient. They're typically working in a larger organization, and they know how to impact change and make change in larger bodies with bigger decision-making protocols and authorities. And so they can navigate through the politics of things a little bit more patiently, a little bit more eloquently. Entrepreneurs typically want to break the rules, like get out of my way and let me just do it the way I need to do it because I know it's right. They're both very driven. They're both very innovative. Entrepreneur probably wants to move a little bit faster, but an intrapreneur can probably, you can make a lot bigger things happen when you have the power of a whole organization behind you, if you can find a way to get people to follow you. And so, like, I think the difference is a little bit patience, intrapreneurs have to be able to be comfortable having less control and trying to get where they need to get to through influence of larger groups. Whereas an entrepreneur can say, I'm rolling up my sleeves, I'm doing it myself. They're both equally innovative, I think, though. It's just the approach and how they execute to get to their end goal is different. And their entrepreneur is a lot more through policy and people and structure.
Wow, that is fascinating. I learned something new today. This is amazing. So, Jessica, would you consider yourself an entrepreneur or an entrepreneur?
I think I lean more to the intrapreneur, to be honest. But
Mhm.
I mean, I'm 25 years intrapreneur and 1 year entrepreneur. So, you know, I still as an entrepreneur look to think, oh, there's probably some structure there. Or I look to a team, like I want to engage a large group of people to get passionate about it and we figure it out together. Which is more common in an intrapreneur than an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur a lot of times is a solo or a small, small team. And so I think I still lean more this way. But I'm getting there. I think
Wow, I
that
love
the
that.
roots, like the soul of both of them are the same in that they want to challenge the status quo. They want to make
Yeah.
things work better, faster. They know there's a better idea. They want to, cut the bureaucracy and get to it. There's a lot of
Mhm.
similarities. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And if you can leverage, the traits of both sides, then you
Mhm.
can almost plug and play and create your own story or your own career based
Yeah.
on your goals and your objectives.
Yeah.
I love that. So, Jessica, if there's one piece of advice that you can give aspiring corporate professionals or entrepreneurs, as we talked about, in terms of landing their dream job and standing out, especially during this time when we're recording this podcast, COVID-19, what would that be?
I mean, I have 10 pieces of advice, but if I really stuck to one, um, it'd probably be about balancing being bold and being humble. You're not going to get your dream job right away. You might have to take the job you want at the place you don't want, or you might have to go to the place you want to be at, but not get the job you want right away and prove
Mm,
yourself. So I think being a combination of being bold and saying, I'm going for it, I'm putting it all out there, and I'm showcasing myself the best I can so I stand out, and being humble to say, I'm not entitled to too much. I'm going to work so hard that you're going to want to give me my dream job because you're going to know I'm best for it. So I think a balance between those two. Um, Standing out, like I think you have to find out what's comfortable for you and your personal brand. But I think of some of the people, like I said, back in the day at WestJet, like we had people do things like send a platter of sushi and say, see my raw talent, and with a resume attached. Or lots of people would send like a shoe with a resume in and inside it and say, like, now that my foot's in the door. And like
oh,
that
I
was
love
quirky
that.
and fun. And yeah. And it was, it was unique to the kinds of roles they were applying for. So it has to feel like it's you. Like if that makes you terribly uncomfortable, that's not what you do. But find
Yeah.
something that's going to make you stand out. And maybe one organization thinks it's weird, but when you find the right organization for you, they're going
Mhm.
to love, it's going to match.
Yes, yes, and having the right advocates. There's a term for this. In corporate, I remember what's that term? It's like a sponsor, a
Oh,
corporate
yeah.
sponsor,
Yeah.
right? Who can help you navigate through the ups and downs of corporate and
Yeah.
give you some existing resources. That would be really, really helpful. And I completely agree when you talked about it's this fine balance that you have to keep. I think our perception or our education, traditional education, has taught us that is like it's one way to success, right? It's like in elementary, in high school, we're already talking about leadership, and leadership is this very, very attractive module in the curriculum. But when we talk about leadership in the real world, when you're starting off, you're not acting like a senior manager, or you're,
Mhm.
you're not actually putting these leadership skills that you know um, John F. Kennedy was using, right? Which they teach you in the textbook. So it takes a lot of grit. It takes a lot of proving yourself and doing the little things well with precision. And that way, showing respect to those who have been in your exact shoes. And back in the days, they had to work 10 times harder on the jobs that were not automated, and
Yeah.
they had to work their way up like that. So I love that piece of advice. I think a lot of people would benefit.
Yeah, and I do think you can inject leadership into any role. Taking
Mhm.
an enterprise approach, looking for the people around you and how you can help, taking ownership of what your task is to the next level, not waiting for someone to tell you. It still demonstrates.
Yes, yes, leadership at every level.
Hmm.
I love that. So, okay, I see that You made a couple of different career moves, going from WestJet um, to Shell I think you started off in RBC even.
Yeah.
So you're obviously an expert when it comes to, navigating corporate and being an entrepreneur, as you said. Can you share some specific, maybe one specific strategy with us in terms of how you can demonstrate high performance and leverage emotional intelligence to your advantage?
Yes. Yeah, I made a lot of changes and shifts. I mean, I greet every position and every company I've been at like I'm going to be there for a lifetime. I emotionally connect to things and want them to be better because I've been there. And I think that shows. But at the same time, I think always kind of thinking about what's next, paying very close attention, like what I said at first about understanding where your joy came from and where you're really demonstrating the best skills. Paying attention to that helped me make some of the moves I made. I made some mistakes too, like especially I think I went from WestJet and we were super entrepreneurial at the time, very, it was a very fast paced, figure it out as you go sort of environment to U of C. And I made that shift. Partially, there was some leadership changes here. There was I had some family situation. My mom was sick at the time and I was working like a dog. So this allowed me to have more time to go to treatments with her and things like that. So it was a good move, but at the same time, culturally, you have to recognize where you fit and in this really kind of slow, bureaucratic, academic space, I didn't fit as well. And so I that didn't mean I abandoned who I was. I mixed things up a lot. I had a great experience there. I have an incredible team that I still keep in touch with and who, we changed a lot of stuff very quickly in that environment. And it was a rush for all of us. But it was probably a mistake to make that move, which is why I went back to corporate because I'm driven by performance and results and it's what energizes me and keeps me moving. So, and I think paying attention to yourself, knowing the difference between, which just takes some practice and some making sure you have quiet time for reflection, is telling the difference between being low energy because you're scared and you need to learn a bunch of new stuff and it's intimidating versus being low energy because you're just not doing the right work for who you are and how you're built is really important in the early years because I think I got those mixed up a couple times and I probably shied away from experiences that had I really dug in were probably going to be perfect for me because I mistake them for them not being the right work. Whereas really it was probably that I was scared, that I had so much to learn. I didn't know where to start. And I was too, I don't know what I was too much of. I was too scared to ask for help. And I mistake those for, this isn't the right work for me. Which I probably would have been one. Like we made some changes in leadership. I was up against some new barriers and I would have plowed through them. Like looking back, I know that. And I took an easy way out. Here's a job that's going to pay me more, give me more time off. I knew it wasn't the right job for me, but it fit a couple things in my life at the time. And so, the sooner in your life, and I think younger students actually have a ton more self-awareness than we were encouraged to have. So I think you're already, you have a step ahead, but paying attention to what's the difference between I'm resisting this because it's hard and it'll be worth it, and I'm resisting this because it's not right for me.
Oh, I love how you laid out the difference because I think going into your first job, for example, that could be very confusing. You're trying to figure out, what you want to do, while on the other end, you have all these different hobbies and passions, and you're trying to fit into it. And there are so many levels of expectations, maybe from yourself, maybe from your bosses. And when all of those opinions come together, you're right. It does. This is from personal opinion. When I was in corporate, it did make me shy away from opportunities because you're almost doubting yourself, right? Because there's so many options. Those options became confusion in a way.
Yeah. And it's okay to say it's not right for me, but make sure you're saying it's not right because it's not right, not because, there's some intimidating new things in your path.
Yes. Yes, I agree. So, I think this leads into my next question. So, you went from the industry WestJet to director of HR at U of C, which is University of Calgary, for those of you who don't know. And then you made that switch back into industry at Shell. So tell us about, the mindset and the process that you went through to make to those decisions.
Yeah. By at that point, I knew that culturally I was struggling, and I had an amazing group of people that we developed a really close knit team. So
Mhm.
at U of C, it was hard. I think WestJet to U of C was a bit of leadership change. I probably should have just dug in, and it would have worked out even better because I
Mm.
loved it there. Culturally, I fit really well. I felt at home. Um, Went to U of C partially because of family experience too, and being able to, it freed up a lot of time.
Yeah.
I thought at the time that I thought that's what I needed, was somewhere that had less demands on me. But then I realized I'm actually wired to just put demands on myself. So it doesn't matter where I work. That's the kind of person. Uh, so, spending some time there, did some good work, but knew it wasn't my forever. And actually, Shell reached out to me about this program they had. And I had resisted going into oil and gas, which is funny because a lot of my career was in Calgary. Um, but I had resisted the industry in general. And the way they sold this role to me, the ability to impact the leaders, the ethics, the experience, and the business in that region just sold me for getting back to I'm meant to be in businesses that pay attention to things that probably public sector companies don't pay as much attention to. I'm meant for a
Yeah.
higher pace performance culture. I'm just wired that way.
Yes. Yes. And I believe, for individuals who are like you, Jessica, who are wired, for this high performance, go, go, go kind of culture. Wow, not only whoever your employer is, they could definitely benefit from that, but you're also like a magnet for those around you, to motivate others and to inspire others, set the great role model example. So that's amazing. So
You
you know
know,
what, Jessica? Hmm.
Oh, I was just gonna say, and there's a bit of a balance there though, because when I got to Shell, I loved the work I was doing, um, but ethics, there was a different approach there that that I had to learn from as well. Like it was a bit different. For me, I'm high performance, but I value the people in my life, my values and my family, and they were very like, people moved around a lot. There's a lot of people who weren't with their families because their work was in a different city. And so, it's
Yeah,
really important to find the company that matches.
right. A company that um, sets you up for success for high performance, at the same time understands that everyone's got
Yeah.
personal matters and people who are important, that maybe they say 9 to 5, but I feel like in these high performing cultures,
No.
it's more like 9 to 10 or 9 to 11. If you're investment banking, is probably like
Oh,
maybe like 6 a.m. to 2 a.m.
yeah, really is. Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. That's a great piece of advice. So now for the exciting stuff,
Yes.
entrepreneurship. Jessica, tell us about how you decided to found your own coaching business or your consulting firm. Let me correct that.
Yeah.
And Memory Keeper.
Yes. So I found myself at a crossroads about a year and a half ago. I guess, yeah, about a year and a half ago now, and was really trying to take the opportunity to take some time to say, what is it I really want? Like, I've turned all these opportunities into great experiences, but I haven't designed them. I've put my play on them. And so I took some time trying to decide mostly whether I had the guts to go out on my own or whether I was looking for another job. And I really, I
JOB.
decided that is not what I was going for this time. I've had a ton of great jobs, had a ton of great mentors, really good experiences. I'm ready for something new. And a lot of the excuses that were in front of me in the past were removed. My house is paid for, my kids' education is saved for. Like some of those barriers that, honestly, looking back now, if you're putting those in front of you, don't like they're made of barriers just to buy yourself some time and comfort. Like they're not real. So, but I think they were removed and I had no more excuses. I had to go for it. And so I was torn between, I had a couple concepts, Memory Keeper being one that was really close to my heart and was a passion project. But completely in a different space. I was not a technical person. I don't know how to do software development. It is a software-based program, digital time capsule, and marketing and storytelling, which I also don't have a ton of background and experience in. But it was in my heart. Like I knew it when I talked about it, when I dreamt about it, when I designed it. I went from here to here, and I knew it was right. And every time I talked to people, and people who I think would be really honest with me, saying, no, we need this. This is brilliant. So, the more I started talking about it, the more I knew I had to do something with it, at least try, but at the same time, there was this all brand new, all scary. It's kind of exhausting, like to spend your whole day, every hour doing things that are brand new to you or that you take longer at because it's the first time you've done it. And so I decided partnering it with something I was comfortable with, which is coaching and consulting, innovation, and really people extracting potential from people in leadership. So working on that allowed me to work with teams of people. It allowed me to keep, to be honest, my confidence up because this is something I knew really well and I'm good at. I know I'm good at. Whereas this, I'm like, it could be a disaster. And it also allowed me to fund because I had the experience and I was credible and was able to get work here easily and add value quickly. It allowed me to fund this other passion that no investor was going to say, oh, you have no experience in this. And yeah, we'd love to invest in you developing a product that we could develop ourselves. I had to be logical about it. And so doing both at the same time, and that was also while I was finishing my EMBA, was a little crazy, but also I needed both of them I needed the one I was comfortable with that I knew I could do well to probably keep myself going financially as well as, validate me and my, sense of, no, I can still do this hard thing. And I needed this because it's like it was planted in my heart. And I know my whole life I've needed to do something. And now I finally, 40 years into thinking, God, I wish I just knew what it was. Now I feel like I know what it is. And so having that and being able to apply myself to it, they balanced really well.
Yeah. The clear vision that just came to you. How that was it a moment? People say, clarity came at a moment of clarity. What was that like for you? Tell us about it.
I've heard that. And again, I'm envious of those people that it was just a moment. For me, it was a bit slow. I needed to validate, I guess, with other people and with myself, which I don't encourage. That's not a great process. But, little by little, mine was a little bit more of a staircase than it was just a moment. Like every step I took, it got a little stronger. And I knew the gravitational pull was getting stronger and pulling me in. And some of that was my own experience and the things I was doing. And some of it was the external validation to say, this is great, or you're on the right track. And then I got far enough in that even when I hit walls, it was still, there's a gravitational pull that's just getting stronger and stronger every day. Yeah. And just last week, we actually launched so that you can log on and you can create a keeper and we have a product. And I did have a couple moments where I was like, this was an idea a year ago. And now I have, technology and a team and a product and people want to buy it. And it's, there was a couple of moments last week where I was like, it was just in awe of, like, it's a different experience to feel pride for yourself, right? There was no external validation. It was just like, I actually pulled it off.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. And I've been following your journey. I'm always on LinkedIn, and I just remember the time when you were doing we had a call, I think it was in 2019, and you were telling me how you were finishing up your EMBA, you were starting up your consulting firm, or you were already doing it. And at the same time, you were telling me about this startup, which at the time was Memory Keeper, which now is like a full, right? It's an idea now. It's like a full grown product that's ready to launch. You have a fantastic team. And I just remember just being so so excited because for me, it felt like I had a a role model um, because last year I was in corporate and I just felt there was an entrepreneurial, there was a more passionate side, and don't get me wrong, I loved corporate, it taught me a
Yeah.
lot, and I'm forever thankful, but just seeing you set that example, it really motivated me
Oh,
to do the things I'm passionate about, and I remember you telling me, or telling me, you asked me, "Alina, what are you passionate about?" And I said, "Marketing and things was to do with communications," and you advised me to hop on a few calls with these specific people, to make sure that I'm on the right path. And I think that's so important. So thank you so much for being my role model, and thank you so much, and for setting the example of lifting each other up,
yes.
mentoring
Very
young women,
important.
which is something I will
Mhm.
always remember to do. When there's younger women who comes to me and ask for advice. So in terms of Memory Keeper, we were recording the session, you were telling me about all these cool, innovative parts about
Mhm.
it. Would you mind sharing them again? They're so exciting.
No, I'd love to. I love talking about this. So, we are a digital time capsule, essentially. So, currently, we have the ability for you to log on and create what we call a keeper in the Memory Keeper, or many. And it's your ability to tell a story with still photos with voice tags, video, print, maps. It's really the way to tell a journey or a story, but it's not just you telling the story. You can invite people to collaborate, so they're co-authors on the story, and you can crowdsource people to contribute to the story. Uh, so it reflects a lot of different elements of the story, and then it creates this keeper that's this end product story. We have the ability for you to do things like take a QR code and put it up at a wedding and have all those funny maybe videos or pictures or what have you that you don't want to put on Instagram, but you want to share with the bride and groom so that they see everything that happened. We have the ability for you to send a video. You can't make it to the wedding in advance. Send a video to play at the wedding as opposed to having, Uncle Sam read a speech at the podium from you. Sending your best wishes to the bride and groom.
Wishes.
And it goes through a whole story. So we are in the process. So right now we're fairly elementary. It is the digital time capsule, the ability to create the keeper, to invite collaborators to co-author it with you, and to invite contributors to contribute to the story. But our next stages on our product are first that we are developing chapters so that you can put chapters. So example, for a wedding, it could be the dating, the engagement, the pre-wedding parties, the rehearsal dinner, the wedding, and everyone can contribute to these experiences. And then you, as the creator or the collaborator, get to decide what the narrative is. So you get to be the author of your own story, but you crowdsource
Mhm.
all the things that happened. And so chapters will be next. And then next we'll be working on integrating social media. We have a lot of customer testimonials of people who've had people's stories captured only on social media, and then all of a sudden their Facebook wall is sunglass ads, and all their pictures and stories and the comments from their grandmas on the birthday party or whatever are gone. So the ability to
Yeah.
integrate those and import them protected into a keeper as opposed to the opposite is something we're working on as well. And long term, we have big long goals. Like, we really think that we have the ability to tell stories in so many dimensions that we're not used to telling it in. We can have voice, we can have video. The only thing we say we can't do with our stories right now is have scent come through them. So all the other senses
Oh,
can,
how cool
you know,
would that
come
be?
through, right? So
Yeah.
the ability for someone who's not born yet to see the video of their great grandma making bread and hearing her voice explain how she makes it. We have the ability. We have the technology to create this, but we don't have good mechanisms and tools and systems in place for us to capture those, keep them, and pass them on. And that's really what we want to do. We want to be able to have, Alina, your great grandchildren go to your tombstone and click on a QR code or scan a QR code to see the story of your life and to hear your voice, and to hear what other people thought of you and what lessons they learned from you, and maybe go to ancestry.com someday and be able to click on that and see that whole story. And so we have some long-term goals, and we have some fairly right in front of us, like the chapters in the social media integration. We think it's applicable to a ton of things. So we're focusing on business to business right now, just because it's a nice, smaller space to have intimate conversations with our customers to get their feedback. But eventually we want to blow it up so that every single person can start telling their stories with Memory Keeper.
I love that. I can't wait for that moment. I will always be on this journey. I know after this, you're gonna send me a list of your social media profiles. I'm gonna share them with my followers, and I can't wait, Jessica. So, in terms of a lot of my followers are currently a student who want to start a business, or they might be in a 9 to 5 job, or maybe a 9 to 10
Yeah.
job where they want to start off something more passionate. So, if there's one piece of advice that you could give them in terms of pushing aside their doubts and fears, what would that be?
I, honestly, I've always said chase what gives you energy. And I think maybe I need to back that up even further and say design what gives you energy a little bit. So even if you're there from 9 till 10, you have to find the things that give you energy, whether it's in that day or outside of that day, and engineer the day to have more of those things.
Mm.
As you do that, I think you will naturally, that gravitational pull will start to pull you there. The things, the opportunities will come up. So you can't wait. There's never going to be a right time to start to chase that. You have to try and engineer it in what you're doing right now. So if you're working a corporate job and you know you want to be entrepreneurial and you have some ideas, take as much advantage of what you have in front of you in that corporate job. Try and get on the committees where you're coming up with new innovations. Try and suggest as many things as you can there. Try and pay attention to how corporations fund new ideas, and just take all the learning. Be super curious about where you're at with a lens on it of where you want to go.
Yeah.
And try and don't wait. Like, inject it into what your day is today. If my passion is about telling stories, if my passion is about challenging the status quo, like, maybe getting to having my own company was the end, but the start might have been that if there's a new product at a company I work at, I say, I want to be on the committee that helps launch it. I don't care if it's extra work, because it's going to drive my energy way up. Don't think of
Yeah.
it that way. Think of it as your energy bank. And the more things you do that give you variety, the more you're going to be energized to do the other stuff too. So that was a windy
I love
path,
this.
but engineer what gives you energy into every day, and don't lose sight of long-term what you're going towards. So try and extract the value in every day that'll give you knowledge to help you do that final goal.
I love that advice. The two words that stuck out to me were engineer and design. And I love the approach of taking, really using what you have in front of you, whether that be in your corporate job and joining that innovation committee, if you want to, innovate a product in the future, or if you want to become a CEO and you need to learn how to sell, you could perhaps, jump on a few volunteer projects within the corporation and learn from the best directors, the best senior managers, how the whole sales process goes, and how, maybe even take notes and, do some boring PowerPoints, even though it's boring at the moment, but you're learning so much about, how these very successful people are conducting and leading these huge corporations in Canada. And that's like a once in a lifetime opportunity.
And don't wait till you're ready. I think every single good experience I've had, if I would have waited till I was ready, would have passed me by. I put my hand up a lot before I actually knew what I was doing to say, I'll try.
Wow.
In corporate, and that actually gave me the strength, I think, to go entrepreneurial and say, I have confidence that I did a bunch of other things that I didn't know how to do, and I figured it out and did well at them. So now I can do this and have some confidence that I know I'll figure it out.
I love that. I love this. I will try. I will try. I will try. So, guys, everyone, thank you so much for listening to our podcast. So, as Jessica said, please try. Please don't wait. Please chase after your dream and be yourself. Design and engineer a life and a career that you love. Thank you so much, Jessica.
Thanks for having me. It was lovely.